And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection. I'm your host, Robert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from the unceded and traditional territory of the Tsimshian people. Wild salmon has played a significant cultural and economic role in West Coast communities throughout British Columbia for as long as humans have lived there. For generations, men and women have fished for wild salmon and worked as processors and retailers. It's not common for today's fishermen to be a third or fourth generation of wild BC salmon fishermen. On today's Open Connection, we open our archives to bring you this story from 1991.
It's like a mad race, and we're all busy trying to put our net in the water, and at times there's a lot of confusion, and as a result, we get some angry people out there. One of the problems I think we're faced with is that we all fish in the same place, and because of the time frame, we all are trying to almost catch the same fish. So I think it puts a lot of pressure on all the fishermen, including the Vietnamese fishermen.
These are tough times for all BC fishermen. Among the hardest hit are newcomers to the industry, particularly those from countries like Vietnam, who lack both local knowledge and experience in our industry.
You know, the river, I guess, is a pretty hard place to fish for anybody, but, you know, I guess a lot of guys getting upset. Now, well, there's too many boats out there, you know. The whole fleet's been pushed down here, you know, so you got the whole fleet in the river. Too many boats was the main problem. I've never seen that many boats in the river, eh? So that's a lot of problem too. It's not just them, I guess. You know, there's only so much room and so many boats, and everybody wants to get their net out.
Like with any group we have that comes into our nation, even with born Canadians, you have troublemakers, and then you have with whether they're Europeans or Asians, it doesn't matter, but you've always got a very, very small percentage. I think most of them, once we get to know them, are probably really decent people, but it's the like the old adage that one rotten apple will spoil the barrel, and this is about the way it is with this kind of thing too. You got 2 or 3 people out of maybe a couple hundred that may be real troublemakers, and they cause all the problems. They're sticking out all the time.
The BC fishing industry has a long history of resolving conflicts and integrating newcomers. When Japanese Canadian fishermen returned to the West Coast in 1949, they were subjected to racial discrimination. Some of those people, still active in the industry, are now working actively to integrate the latest wave of newcomers. Despite all the efforts of groups and individuals of different backgrounds and ethnic origins working in harmony, there have been cases of racial discrimination. This has led to isolated incidents of violent confrontation.
We've had trouble this year in Rupert, Skeena, and Steeston, and that's just not to be. It's hard enough making a living without having to cope with that too. So we've had incidences where there's been ramming and guns have been out, and somebody is going to get shot or killed, or maybe a whole bunch.
And last time in the Pink River Skeena, my friend they wait here for about 4 hours for the fishing. He make a line up, you know. Then one guy, he come over, the white guy, he come over, he said, okay, I fish here for 20 years, you better go away. They don't want my friend fish, so set the net over there. That's no good.
But that's the way it goes. Both sides have what they consider legitimate beefs. Given the chance, neither group is shy about making its feelings known. Some beefs from traditional fishermen. The visible minority.
See, there's too many of them at one time. See, if you took them a little bit at a time, say a dozen or so every year, you wouldn't notice it. But when you get 400 in one lump sum, that's a lot of people. And it's hard for everybody to get used to it.
Fact. Commercial salmon fishing licenses have been reduced from 6,000 to 4,500 during the past 20 years. Of over 2,200 salmon gill netters, 120 are Vietnamese. Unfair government assistance.
Here, they're subsidized because they're a landed immigrant, and they get a license right away. I really don't see that that's fair. That's a real sore point. Granted, we don't own the industry, but I'll tell you, when you've been around it for a while and you see somebody else come in and just kind of take over, it's not the nicest thing. And when they don't play the rules, well, it's even worse. So.
Fact: Vietnamese fishermen receive no government assistance in buying a license, a boat, or for any other fishing purpose.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. A bias is a tendency, inclination, or prejudice towards or against something or someone. Some biases are positive and helpful, like choosing only to eat foods that are considered healthy or staying away from someone who knowingly caused harm. But some biases are often based on stereotypes rather than actual knowledge of the individual or circumstance. Let us return to the archives as they highlight some biases.
Hiding behind language barrier.
They all say they don't speak English, but they understand, you know, and when they've done something wrong, then it's, oh, me no understand or no speak English, eh, but they understand.
Fact: most Vietnamese fishermen speak enough English to get by. In a stressful situation, any communication is difficult. The Vietnamese always stick together in a dispute.
Man, this is Canada, or BC, and it's not Vietnam. We're not at war here, and it seems to me those guys are still at war. It's not the way it should be. You've got to be able to communicate, or else you got to get out of the game.
Fact: because they are a visible minority, the Vietnamese are sometimes subjected to racial discrimination. They are shy about speaking out. When listening to fishermen, two things become clear. This is a complex situation, and there are lots of misunderstandings. Some of the new guys' beefs. Fair treatment and a chance to make a living for our families.
I think, you know, some of them don't like my people. We don't want to make any problem with them, then we don't want them to make any problem with us too. So, that's fair, you know.
Fact: many traditional fishermen agree with this viewpoint. Some people try to scare us away.
Some people, some English, some Canadian, or some Indian, who consider us as second class citizen like this. They think they earn the fishing ground long time ago, so we have no right to. We have to yield them, to give them to fish first, for something like this, because some people who are very strong people, and they think they can make some intimidation to scare us to go away, and not a good hot spot, and to give them a hot spot to fish.
Fact: there are a few troublemakers in every industry. It takes time to adapt to a highly regulated, highly mechanized industry.
Most Vietnamese people, they're all fishing in Vietnam to make a living, eh? So that's why I know how to be fishing. In Vietnam, it's just the tack is just slow, you know, and they all use by hand. Most of them they use by hand, and then in Canada here they use all machine. You know, fishery there's totally different. You're allowed to fish any day. It's not like here. Here, you know, you can fish, you know, certain day from a fishery. They want you to go to open what area they tell you to go. But that's the difference between here and Vietnam.
Fact, the Vietnamese have shown willingness to cooperate in cross-cultural exchanges. They want to fit in. Discrimination remains a sore point.
Like last year, you know, the between Canadian people and the Vietnamese fishermen fighting at the dock right here. Then when all the GMP come over, you know, they just tell the Vietnamese fishermen lay down, you know, but they didn't say nothing about the other side. So I think that, you know, unfair with my people, you know.
Fact, the best way to deal with such incidents is to report them to the proper authorities and then follow through if rules aren't followed. There should be the same rules for all.
To me, I think is people, they should share, you know. They don't think like, you know, like just new and old. Like I've been here longer, you know, you should, when you make one rule, you have to keep your rule. They keep changing sometime, and the new person they come in, they don't even know that when they are trouble with fishing, you know, people, they live here longer, they make this kind of rule and they don't let nobody know it. And another new person come in, they don't know, you know, when that rule started.
Fact, rules, even unwritten rules, apply to all BC fishermen.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. Communication is simply the act of transferring information from one place, person, or group to another. Every communication involves at least one sender, a message, and a recipient. This sounds simple, but communication is actually a very complex subject. Let us return to the archives to discover how having a goal can help in communication.
Looking for solutions. There are no easy answers to these problems, but important steps are being taken to improve communications on both sides. There are hopeful signs that some tensions are lessening, but there are still areas of disagreement that must be dealt with. Meanwhile, there's no shortage of ideas for solutions.
I think it's a communication problem, basically, but I don't know, if you don't understand the English language, it's kind of hard to let a guy go out and fish. I think if you're going to get into the fishing industry, you can't be ignorant and shrug your shoulders. I mean, and then the same thing on waiting turns and that. You've got to, what's good for one is good for the other. That's what I'm trying to say. And if you can't cope with that, well, then I don't think you should have a license.
When I first came here and become a fisherman, I got no experience, and I don't know what is going on here, you know. I don't understand how they do it and what is the rule or regulation they do, you know. And it's coming along, I learn, and then now I'm getting a little bit better now. Oh, some people, they help. Yeah, I met a lot of white men and even native people. When we start talking and become a good friend, I guess, yeah. I'm speaking English. That's it basically, yeah, most of the time.
I think there's a general myth in the industry that the newcomers, the Vietnamese, are receiving grants from the provincial government. And I really don't think that's true. And by talking to various people, you find out it isn't true. The problem that we have is we have just inexperience out there now. You can go out and buy a boat. You can just come off the street and buy a boat if you got the money, and you can go fishing. But you aren't going to learn how to become a fisherman by just doing it that way. I think if you want to become a fisherman, you should actually go deckhanding, and then for a couple of years at least, and then go out and buy a boat if you want to enter the industry. That's the way it should be done. I don't really think it's a racial problem. It's really a problem of time, amount of time we have for fishing, and we all have investment in our boats and nets, and we have to pay for it, and it's really an economic problem.
At a time when many BC fishermen are struggling to survive, It doesn't make sense to fight amongst ourselves. Both sides realize that a unified approach, using all available resources, is needed to succeed. As an industry, we've weathered tough times. We've successfully integrated groups of newcomers in the past. Through good communication and education, we can do it again with the present group of Vietnamese.
Sometimes we have a meeting with the with the Canadian fishermen, and then we get the information from fishery. Most of them from fishery, they give us a book, and then we have the group, we call it the Vietnamese Association, and he always go find all kind of thing, and then we have a meeting every month, and then he come back, and then he have to teach all the other Vietnamese, let them all know about what you're supposed to do in this country and how you're gonna fish in this Canada here. That's how we know to to prepare us for next time we be fishing.
I've always felt very proud of the way that we as Canadians have handled our resources and gotten into management plans and taking care of our resources, so we got something for future Canadians yet to be born that aren't here to defend for themselves. So we're in effect, we've become the stewards of the resources we have for future generations. It's a lot easier when everybody can cooperate with each other. I mean, you don't have to like each other, but as long as you cooperate with each other so that we can all of us make a living out of it and get a good chance to make something instead of just messing each other up and nobody getting anything. If something happens to you at sea, you just can't park the boat out there in the middle of water and put on your Jesus boots and walk home or catch a bus or anything like that. And so our lives all depend on each other being able to cooperate and get along with each other, and that's an important part. But one of the beauties of our nation is its multicultural aspect, and all of this has something to contribute to make us a unique people, or a Canadian people. I mean, we're not English, or we're not Germans, or we're not Chinese. We're Canadians, and we have this multicultural aspect, the mosaic that makes us Canadians.
With the United Fishermen and Allied Workers Union, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, and the Vietnamese Fishing Association, a cross-cultural task force was set up with those groups, along with the Native Brotherhood and other organizations, to work together to make a difference.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
For people without physical or mental disabilities or impairments, the definition of normal may be vastly different. Why? Because we've been socialized to believe that certain traits, characteristics, and functions are normal, and everything else is outside that boundary. In this final segment of Open Connection, we return to the archive to witness how an organization in Prince Rupert helps everyone.
Meet Mike, Daisy, and Shannon. Mike and Shannon are employed part-time at the Prince Rupert Senior Secondary Canteen. The canteen is operated by the association in conjunction with School District 52. Daisy is a volunteer from Port Edward. Mike is an enthusiastic employee who loves his work.
So Michael, what's one of your jobs today? What are you doing right now for us?
Macaroni and cheese.
You're grating the cheese.
Yeah.
Do you like that?
Oh, yeah.
How do you like working in the kitchen?
Oh, I like it.
Lots of
A
fun.
lot, yeah.
You look pretty excited to be here.
Yeah, I am.
I enjoy coming here every day, and I really like it. The people here are really nice and friendly. They all have smiles on their faces. I like cooking soup and serving the people that come in. Do the dishes, wipe them up and dry them.
This particular canteen program started about 2 years ago, and the first year a lot of the staff did a lot of the work, and clients really enjoyed coming down and seeing all the friends. And so this year we decided that 2 people could be employed, so we employed them. 4 hours a day, and they make a minimum wage. This is the first time that they have had a paycheck. Before they've received incentive pay. It's made a big difference. They've taken on responsibility really well, and they're really proud of their job. So, and they enjoy coming to work. You know, there's always a big smile.
As far as integration goes, have there any been problems? How has the students of the school accepted?
The students love to see them here, and they miss it. And the few days that we've had to shut down the kitchen, they complained. They said they really like us to come. They like to see the people here.
Well, that is great. That's a great start to sort of dispel some of the myths as far as the mentally challenged goes.
I think it's opened their eyes. They've seen them that they are cooking and they are doing a lot of the work where in the past staff did it. So it's making a big difference in the way they perceive mentally handicapped people. The main goal of this center right now is to get our people integrated into the community. They have a right to live and work in the community, and they are very capable of employment. So we're looking to, you know, show them that they can work, and they will be employed.
As compared to yesterday, as it were, what sort of activities are currently going on at the center?
Well, we have some people going out looking for jobs, and they are still doing some janitorial contracts with the Coast Guard, which they've done for years, and they really enjoy it. The Coast Guard's been very supportive. They also continue with the canteen. We have 2 people employed there. And then now we have started the community access program for the ones that aren't quite ready to work. And they do a lot of volunteer work in the community. They go out and have lunch. They meet people that are in the community. They're finding out what kinds of jobs are available and maybe they would like to try. And they go swimming, they go bowling, so it's fun too.
What are the prerequisites for a client to enter the program?
They have to be 19 or adult, mentally handicapped, and they come to us through the Ministry of Social Services and Housing.
Okay. Do you have a limit of how many clients you can handle at one time?
I think we're funded for about 8 people, and in the past we've had up to 12 that have come through the doors, but we've had to say no more recently and to please go through the Social Services and Housing, because that's where the funding comes from, and the more that they know are on the waiting list, you know, they'll release more funds and sponsor more programs.
How has the focus changed from the early stages of the program as opposed to today's thrust?
I think at first they did a lot of crafts. Mainly what they wanted to do was fill their days with something that was fun to do, and instead of sitting home. So they did a lot of crafts. They did janitorial contracts, and mainly did some work in the community. They did some gardening.
What sort of fulfillment do you reap from your job?
I like opening doors to people, and I want to give the power back to mentally handicapped people. They don't seem to realize that they have rights, and I like to inform them and help them.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.